Hello, Councillor Cutler. Just to let you know, I'm still waiting for about another 2 or 3 members to join. We're not quorate yet. We've only got 3 members on the call at the minute. So a few more minutes to go and I'll touch base with you.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
we need
you.
we could do with some haven't councillors.
Yeah, we haven't got any at the moment. I've only got one apology at the moment for haven't. So I'm hoping we'll have a few join.
That's another one of ours anyway.
Hello, Councillor Bennett. If I can ask you to mute your camera and microphone until you have any questions and the meeting gets going, that'd be brilliant. Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Bennett, if you can mute your camera, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, Chair, we've got 4 members present. We should have 5 to be quorate, so I'm waiting for one more member to join.
Yeah, Councillor Chamberlain, I know is Councillor Clear is.
That's right. We are quorate now. Councillor Langford Smith's just joined the call, so we're okay to go whenever you are.
But unfortunately, we haven't got any haven't councillors here yet.
Not at the minute, no.
I'll give it another minute and then we'll get going. It does seem unfortunate that we haven't got any haven't councillors. Councillor Harrison said she'd be here. We've got to elect a vice chairman as the first item, so it's quite difficult.
Yeah. I'll let you know as soon as one joins. Yeah, we are quorate though, just to let you know that.
Okay. Aha.
Councillor Harrison's just about to join.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, I think given that we are now quorate and it's 6:01, we will make a start. Good evening, everyone. Please can I welcome you all to this Winchester City Council meeting of the West of Waterlooville Forum. It's 6:01 now, on Thursday the 19th of June 2025. My name is Councillor Neil Cutler, Chairperson of the Forum. This meeting is being held virtually and is being live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel, and the recording will also be available after the meeting. Subtitles can be switched on, and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. First of all, may I ask everyone present in this virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and your cameras turned off whilst you're not addressing the meeting, as this will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. Members and officers, where appropriate for each item, please indicate that you wish to speak or raise a hand, or to raise a point of order or explanation by raising your hand using the hand icon on the screen, and I will invite you to then speak at the appropriate time. Each member will be invited to speak in turn, therefore I would encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Finally, we have a number of officers present this evening. Please can I ask you to introduce yourselves as you speak. We'll move on to the agenda then, and apologies and deputy members.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, apologies for absence received from Councillor Robinson from Havant Borough Council, Councillor Chamberlain from Winchester City Council with Councillor Clear deputising, and from officers Leah Hampton from Granger, Steve Weaver and Louise Weaver from Havant Borough Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Item 3 is the appointment of the Vice Chairperson for the 25-26 municipal year. The Vice Chairperson is traditionally a member of Havant Borough Council. I think it probably sensible that I propose Councillor Antonia Harrison as the Havant member present as Vice Chair. Councillor, Mike Reid, you've got your hand raised.
I have, thank you, Chairman. It's just to second that proposal, if I may.
Thank you very much for that seconding. All those in favour? I will assume
Agreed.
Unless agreed. Thank you very much. I think that's agreed. I forgot to check with Councillor Harrison whether she'd be happy to be Vice Chair, mind you, but I'm sure that she is, unless I hear anything to the contrary. All right, we have a thumbs up. Thank you. Item 4 then, disclosures of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest? No. Item 5, to note the meeting dates for 25-26. That's the 24th of November 2025 and the 3rd of March 2026. Okay. The minutes of the previous meeting, which are attached to the agenda. Are we happy with the minutes of the previous meeting? Again?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you. No other comments?
Chairman, at what point can we just question an update on certain points from the last meeting?
Well, I was going to say matters arising from the agenda at this point, except for anything that is already on this agenda.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Okay, so matters arising, you have something you wish to raise, Michael. Please go ahead.
Yes, if I may, Chairman. On page 11C, welcome the report. Has anything changed with regards to the confirmation on the A3 that runs through the centre of Waterlooville? Is there any update on that?
That would, yeah, I'm not sure who was going to look into that as the, yeah, I know what you mean. The question of whether the A3 is still an adopted highway through the centre.
It is at the moment. Yeah.
It is.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have any county councillors present, but I'll note that down as. Pardon?
Councillor Harrison.
Antonia.
Yeah.
Sorry. Would you like to speak?
I've got an echo.
You've got an echo because you're in twice for some reason.
I don't know what's going on. Right. Simply that I don't know why I've got an echo. I asked about this and was told that the county council have given us use of the road going through the town centre, and we don't need to actually adopt it.
Okay. Righto.
Can I go down to D then? The question of regarding the ongoing maintenance of such a road.
Well, it is being maintained by Havant, isn't it, at the moment, the road?
If that's it, then fine.
Well, I would assume if it's been, the control of it's been handed over, I presume the maintenance has, but perhaps Antonio, you could clarify that aspect of it as well. But
I'm trying to get rid of this echo.
yeah, for some reason you show on the screen as being in the meeting twice.
Yeah, and I don't know how to get out of that.
So I think you're going to have to leave one of them.
Why don't Oh, okay, right, got it.
Right.
I've tried to remove you from the meeting on that one, Councillor Harrison. You should still be remaining in the other.
I think she's left as well, so we're going to let her back in again. Right.
And I've got one more question, if I may, and
Yeah,
that
sure.
is that I know you said there's no county councillor there, but it refers to page 13, any other business, and it was with regards to the D1, D2 bus service. The question was asked, but I wonder whether there's any further movement on that.
Okay, I will undertake to make sure that the questions on the buses are answered before the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
On the buses. Does anybody else have anything to raise on the minutes of the previous meeting? If not, we will move on to item. Sorry, I'll just get back to my agenda. Item 7, which is public participation, and again, I don't think we have any members of the public here to join the meeting, so there will be no requirement for public participation. So item 8, we move on to the Granger progress report, which I think Chris is presenting. So I'll hand over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Neil. I will go through the project report. David McCarthy is also with me today, as Lee is currently on leave. What I will do is I will skip over the elements that David will be picking up upon and touching and focus towards the end of the report on the infrastructure elements and the community development that we've currently been working on. With regards to infrastructure, we have finalised phase 5 infrastructure, as we call it, which is the road that connects the two elements of Newlands Avenue. That is now being blocked off to prevent vehicular access through it, so that it can't become a road used by the public as per the conditions of our 106. Phase 4 infrastructure and the Southern Access Junction are the precursors to the phase 5 infrastructure being opened fully. Phase 4 infrastructure we are looking to commence on site towards the later part of this year, and that will be implemented as effectively a whole road to allow the construction of the Southern Access Junction, which will be the main works. The Southern Access Junction should be starting on site the early part of next year. Once complete, the works will be a case of finishing off phase 4 on a way out from the inside of the development, so that everything is finished to the right standard. At the same time, we are also installing the Safe Routes to School scheme, which is part of one of our 106 obligations. and that will be installed at present by the end of August, which will be a good scheme to get over the line in time for the school. We'll also be doing some works on the Western Link Road and finishing that element off, which is outside of the new school. And something else that isn't actually on our report this week is that we are also going to be commencing the finishing works for Yew Gardens and Oakvale roads, the main routes through them, so they will be finished up to an adoptable standard. I am working with the County Council and the utility providers at present to get the agreements for them across the line, and meaning that we can hopefully have those ready for adoption, hopefully later part of next year. General adoptions wise, legal agreements, we are proceeding at pace. We now have a standardized agreement for most of the schemes. We are unfortunately stalled by a third party who have some complications and don't wish to become party to the 38, which is preventing us from proceeding into the wider development from the north. However, we are proceeding where we can, so we are doing the southern half of the development concurrently with what we can of the north. The issue with the other party not wanting to be party to the 38 means that it might have some delays. At present, we've lost around 6 months or so trying to get negotiations resolved there. Hopefully they will be resolved soon. I now have contact details. With the state or community engagement, we've had significant amount of engagement and items brought in that's listed. I won't go through everything on that. Lee, as everybody saw last time, is quite passionate about community development and has done an excellent level of engagement. We are seeing however, disappointingly, we are seeing a slowdown in participation and not as much uptake as we'd like to see within areas outside of the community. Some organisations are not necessarily being as helpful as they could be. So we are working on methodologies around that with the aim to be able to deliver an entire scheme of social value elements to the wider area through the implementation of, and I know some of you have received a copy, the social value wish list, whereby future developers and contractors will be encouraged to be able to support the local community and wider area with the social value elements, which are all elements that have been specifically requested by various organisations. Some requests are possibly a bit too expensive to get resolved, but there are elements within there that can easily be resolved and quite helpfully done so. So realistically, I'll leave the rest now to David to go through land sale and planning elements. So I'll turn off camera.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, following on from what Chris has provided you with, then talking planning and kind of works on site, we have northern allotments currently on site being constructed. We also have the southern allotments, which also includes a car parking facility and a play area. So both of those are on site as we speak. Town Park Phase B is in planning at the moment. We've received comments back from both the authority and highways, which we are addressing and working in conjunction with them to resolve those queries. So that is ongoing at the moment. Community Nature Reserve, we are reviewing internally in terms of the tender packs for the contractors, and we will be starting those works once that is resolved. So hopefully the late end of this year, hopefully. Cricket Pavilion, we will likely have minor tweaks to the previously approved decision notice. Again, this is being reviewed internally and we will be hoping to start on site with that at some point next year. And then in terms of other applications that we have active at the moment, we have both Blue Star, which appreciates it's outside of the Bearwood, adjacent to the Bearwood development, but that is being, we've received comments back on the proposal and we're working our way through those, but then also school extension land. We are looking to submit revised information for that application early part of next month, July. So that brings me on to the local centre, which is quite a key topic, shall we say, for the development. So I think it's worth just winding back slightly. So within the development, we have a land parcel which we've named Phase 6A. Within that land parcel, we have divided it up into 5 elements. We will have a medical centre, we will have an extra care, we will have a retirement living element, and we'll have private residential. And the final element of it is the local centre. So within the local centre, we will have amenities such as a convenience store, 3 to 4 commercial units, a nursery with an outdoor play provision for the nursery, and the community hall element. So we have been in legal discussions which are progressing well, and alongside that there are various councillors which we have implemented probably over the last 8 to 12 months, regular catch-ups just to provide progress and you know, to demonstrate where we're currently at and how things are progressing. In terms of timescales, that is obviously the golden question. Obviously these are kind of lines in the sand that we have drawn, but they can move. But we are hoping to complete on on the legal negotiations with the developer who's providing everything within the local centre by close of September this year. The developer itself is very keen to get their application in, and they are hoping to achieve planning permission sometime around April next year, and then subject to approval, they will be running straight onto site, and they've got quite a tight delivery program. But yeah, happy to take any questions at the end, but that kind of concludes, I would suggest, our Granger update.
Thank you very much, Dave and Chris. I would imagine that there are a number of questions. Let's start with Councillor Crichton, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Am I visible?
You are visible now.
That's fine. Yes, David, a couple of points of clarification. The allotments are mentioned. There's no mention in there of the dog exercise areas, which are all supposed to be part of that development. Do we actually have a schedule for those as well?
Yeah, so thank you, David. The dog agility is in the north, which forms part of our community nature reserve application. So that will come forward as part of that delivery section. So what we've done is we've broken out the allotments because we see the need to obviously bring those forward in the first instance, and then we would bring forward the dog agility. Apologies, I said north, but it's actually in the south.
South. And the other question is in relation to the district centre. The community centre, there's no mention of the parish offices, which are to be provided as part of that. Is that assumed to be part of the community centre, or is that has been overlooked at the moment?
No, it hasn't. It most certainly hasn't been overlooked. I think there are various degrees of discussions that need to, shall we say, commence and continue. So yes, I would say we will pick it up between us in the near future.
That's fine. I just other than that, I've got no issues with that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councillor Reid, you've got a comment?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, thank you for the update. David has already covered one of the items that I wanted to with regarding parish offices, but you said a hall. Is that correct? Just one hall?
Yeah, no, apologies. It's a building of
structure.
which will have various facilities within it.
Fine, thank you. And the other one is with regards to the Blue Star Land. Do we know the route this will take for planning? Whilst it is, I agree, totally within Havant Borough, the approach to it unfortunately comes through Winchester, which may cause some concern to some people. So will this be something that will go to the joint committee, or will it be done by Havant Borough Council with an invitation for Winchester element to attend?
I think that might be a question more for a
Councillor
planning officer.
Harrison.
So Rose, I suggest you see if you can answer that one.
Thank you, Chair. So the Blue Star Land is a joint planning application. It's located outside of what is covered by the Joint Planning Committee remit. So in this case, it will have 2 committee meetings, one at the Havant Borough Council and one at the Winchester Borough Council.
Okay, that's why we set the joint council up. But yeah, okay, I understand now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, after many years of concern about the Joint Planning Committee meeting, it is meeting next week. I think I'm surprised Michael's not sort of trumpeting this, because
I've already got the agendas and everything, so don't worry, I'll be there. Actually, I'm probably the only councillor that attended that meeting still left.
I have attended them.
Thank you.
Okay. Further question? Do we have any further questions here on the Granger report? Councillor Clear, please.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciated. I am pleased to see that you've given us a bit more on Phase 6A local centre area, because there was just a brief mention in the report regarding the planning application for the local centre. I take it that that is all you can give us at the moment. I'm just interested, and could I just also ask you that, have you had enough or a lot of consultation with the parish council regarding this, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you, Angela. Yes, so in terms of your immediate question about planning, yes, I think we're kind of, it's almost a domino effect. We've got to get the legals completed to then release the developer into to get their application submitted. In terms of the parish council and liaising with them in regards to the community hall, that is the next steps. I think, correct me, David Brighton may be able to correct me in terms of if there was any previous historical conversations, but obviously time has moved on. So yes, we would, I would welcome conversations in the near future, definitely.
David, your hand's raised, so I assume you want to comment on this.
Well, thank you. I mean, the immediate answer to David on that is you will remember there was a previous consultation and display of a proposal for the community building some years ago in an urban barn format, which was interesting, but I think has now been discarded, particularly since we've all been over to see the community centre at Eastleigh, which looked a better model. So yes, we certainly would like, as a parish, to become involved in the details of the planning as early as is possible. And I appreciate the fact it has to be done within the terms of what's agreed with the developer who's going to take part. But we would like to make sure that we are involved in this. One other point that I wanted to raise, you've mentioned in there, of course, there is land there for the medical centre. I'm also a member of the patient group at the Vine. And at the moment, there appears to be absolutely no status available as to the situation with regard to that medical facility. I've asked the Vine, who seem to know about it. Dr. Barman, I think, has now been working on that project for about 15 years. There is some concern that the changes that the government is proposing for the National Health Service may affect the ability of the ICB to give final approval to it. And I'm not sure who we can ask on this, but I just wanted to highlight the fact at the moment, whilst we have a space reserved for the medical centre, there is absolutely no indication at the moment as to when or even if it's going to be finally delivered.
Dave, have you got any response on the medical centre? Any further updates on that?
No, there aren't, to be fair, that I can share, but yeah, no, I do acknowledge David's points he's raised, and yeah, I mean, we are still earmarking the land for medical, but it is subject to IC funding, so probably suggest maybe a catch up, David, in a couple of months, and we can touch base on that and may have a further update on the next forum meeting.
Okay, anybody else with any questions before I ask mine? I'm very, very concerned about the approach being taken by about the village centre. The opportunity for consultation with residents seems to be, well, from the way the process has been described, it would seem that Granger will be entering into a legal agreement with the developer that presumably will set pretty tight parameters as to what they're going to build, which leaves very little room and very little flexibility within the system. Now, I appreciate that presumably from the Section 106 point of view and from a legal perspective, that is all you have to do, but I'm not convinced it's the best approach in building a community. So I just wondered if you had any response to that.
Yeah, no, I do acknowledge your concerns, Neil. I think where there was comprehensive consultation, public consultation done back in 2019, capturing the views, that hasn't been lost or forgotten. And you quite rightly mentioned that, yes, in terms of the provision that we are required to provide under the Section 106, it's pretty clear. So our view is a public consultation has been done. We are taking that forward and those views, and what I think we're actually talking about is placemaking an architectural form. And what I would hope is that if the provisions are provided, that actually through the planning process, that if there are concerns with, shall we say, the architectural form and what's being brought forward, how it looks, is there are concerns on that would be picked up through the planning process. But I think from my background, best public consultation is open book and gather the views. And what my nervousness is that if we do that, we are asking for people to make recommendations, but actually our hands are tied by the 106. And what I've found in the past is that when you do open that up, you cause more frustration. So I think in terms of taking this forward, we've got a clear brief under the 106, and then it's down to the planning process to, with Granger, obviously, to ensure that what's being brought forward from an architectural perspective meets the requirement of the development and the design code.
Yeah, I suppose my concern is that a consultation taken in 2019, which is 6 years ago, and the world has changed dramatically since then. People's views of what they need have changed dramatically since then. A lot of people working from home. you've got probably double the population on site now than you had in 2019. I'm not sure that any of that consultation is particularly valid because so much time has gone on since. Now, I accept your point up to a point that you are constrained, but I'm not sure that the planning system would necessarily hold you to that constraint if there was public demand for a different architecture. And I don't mean physical architecture, I mean sort of what's there. And that's the bit that concerns me. Yes, of course, the planning process will look at what's built in terms of the physical architecture, but there is a whole element about, are we building the right thing there now, given that the world is quite a different place in building a community? So I am nervous about it being that rigid.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do share your concern on this, and I think, yeah, I think it's also, and it's probably a conversation, and happy to set a meeting up separately outside of the forum to, shall we say, continue this conversation, but it's also taking into the wider context as well in terms of the town centre. And I don't think anybody would potentially contest a nursery on site. I don't think anybody would swap out a community hall for another facility. So it's potentially putting up a debate against a low, a convenience store and 4 commercial units. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think
it's fairly clear that in our dealing with residents, that a community store is a pretty important function of that. We know that a proper community centre is a key function. I suppose it's what else, and I suppose there is flexibility around the 4 commercial units, but I suppose, as an example, the way things have changed is that there may be a lot of people on the broader estate working from home now for whom it may be more important to have a facility, a coffee shop, rather than a retail facility. That is the food and beverage element, or the meeting place, or the place where they can hold sort of shared workspace, or that sort of side of things that might be a more important element. I don't know. I haven't, because there hasn't been a consultation across the development since that change in working habits, and that's the bit that I'm concerned that we might not build the right thing. I suppose that's the element. I have a question from because I don't think there's anything you can do to answer that, David, but I'm just expressing that concern.
No, of course. I can only comment on your suggestion of a coffee shop, and our developer, albeit not confirmed, is in favour of, shall we say, that community element of, we've dropped our kids off to school, people come and meet, it's almost footfall and tracking between how you capture people into this space. So I would say your recommendation of a coffee shop is noted, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one if there was one. So
and will we, as soon as you've sorted out your legal status with the developer, I mean, will we have an opportunity then, as soon as you can name who the developer is? I think that's the point at which we need some quite close consultation with them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, in fact, you've covered part of the subject matter. The other thing was, with the 6-year gap since seeking people's opinions, there's been a rather big change with regards to the requirement and what type of requirement the medical area is going to need. one's got to be careful, and this will be dealt with in planning, obviously, and that is the car parking element that will be attached to any medical facility in the area. So it's something we've got to be well aware of. But yes, the 6-year gap between the public consultation and now, I think, is a bit stretched if you try to use it in by law even. Thank you, Joe.
And David?
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to make a couple of points. One, whilst I appreciate the fact that the planning process can pick up a number of things, as the planners present will agree, it's not a way of getting a proper consultation. We've got plenty of examples throughout the development of areas where very strong views have been registered by residents in terms of their objections or support on a planning application, but they've not really, they have no weight as such in the process. The decisions are made in the planning process on planning grounds. So I would certainly welcome the point that you've made, Neil, that as soon as it's possible, some initial discussions, both at district and at parish level, with Grangers and with the developer, to try and form some idea of what might be done, and then at least make that known to residents, probably is the only practical way. Obviously, we don't want to hold up the development any longer than is necessary. In my particular case, time's running short anyway, thank you. But I would like to, I'd like to make sure that we get the best result on it. It's why I mentioned the Eastleigh Community Centre, and the question of the coffee shops come up again then. And that was simply a model that we looked at. But I think the elements are known. It was simply a case of making sure that we get the right result on it.
Yeah.
And I'll leave that to you to discuss with Granger, but we would like to be part of that process.
I mean, I do think, we know what happened, how long it took to let the shops directly opposite the Berg Estate element of things. Commercial units might not really have a place, or the same sort of place there. And it's actually understanding what the demand is, because I think it would not be sensible to build something without understanding what the residents feel they would use. Because, and of course, the other element with this village centre is we don't want it to compete with Waterlooville Town Centre if we're trying to regenerate Waterlooville Town Centre. So it's got to be complementary. So I think it's really important that those discussions are held before something is built that might turn into a white elephant.
Can I make just one other point on that, just for consideration by everybody, and particularly by Granger? As far as the shop units are concerned, you may be aware that the initial design for the health centre included a pharmacy. The last redesign of it removed that on cost grounds. And one of the things that we have already asked for is, and this is, it really is conditional on getting final agreement on the health centre. But if the health centre does not have a pharmacy, we would argue quite strongly that one of the remaining shop units be allocated as a pharmacy. It's a long way for anybody outside the estate to have to go to actually find those facilities. And I think it would be very helpful. I'm not making demands on it. I'm simply pointing out that that's a consideration amongst many that we need to look at when we get into the design of these things.
Okay, I think we've had a pretty good discussion, and I hope both Chris and David, you recognise the sort of strength of feeling about the village centre and how important it is for us to be engaged with that process. But I really appreciate you both coming along to the forum and for your comprehensive report. Thank you very much. You both seem to have disappeared off the screen, so I can't even.
No, you're welcome. You're definitely welcome.
Definitely.
We do appreciate you coming along. I know it sort of takes up part of your evening, and it's very, very useful to have you here and to be able to have those discussions. Thank you very much. Right, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the West Waterlooville Arts Programme update. The arts programme's dropped the OV, which is brilliant. because we always felt that we ought to drop the of and it'd be West Waterlooville. Emmeline, can I hand over to you?
Yep, thank you, Chair. The dropping of the of was slightly intentional based on conversations we've been having, so that's how we are referring to it. For those of you that don't know me, I am Emmeline. I am Culture and Creative Sector Development Officer for Winchester City Council, taking somewhat of the lead on the arts programme, which I'm just going to give you a quick update. Hopefully you can see those slides.
Yep, they're on the screen.
Great stuff. Okay, so as mentioned at the last meeting, we do now have a full team of artists and designers and writers and managers and evaluators and all those sorts of things. So if you spend a lot of time in the community, hopefully you will have come across either Gail and or Aoife, as they are on site quite often. The rest of us are doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but it's a very skilled and talented team that we've put together. Also, hopefully you will recognise plot lines as the name for the arts programme, playing on the idea of plots of land and also plots in stories, because that's what we're interested in collecting. And hopefully this visual identity is starting to be recognised among the people living on the estate. We kind of launched the programme with a workshop in the library back in April. We were trying to capitalise on some natural footfall by going into the town centre, and we had various conversations with people about what reminds them of home, and we got lots of really nice responses, which is really helpful in terms of building that sense of community. And all of the writers on the programme also spent some time in the library that afternoon getting to know each other. Then in May we did a couple of events. So we went to the VE Day Fete, and we had these magnetic words that people came along and did poetry, and there were some drawing boards for younger children, and I believe Councillor Cutler was there as well and said hello to the team. So that was a really lovely day. I think 25 people wrote poetry and then spoke to just as many people more than that, doing various bits and pieces and telling them all about the programme. And on the same day, Aoife went to the care home and did a workshop on memories and thank yous, and quite a lot of the residents had memories of rationing as we were talking about VE Day and the war, and she then turned that into a poem talking about eating bananas and going crazy because they'd never seen a banana before. Very interesting stuff. And then what we did with that was then given to Southern Music Project, who worked with a group of young people to turn the poem into a song. The group of young people then went into the care home, performed the song back to the residents and their family members. And this event was completely oversubscribed. I think there was 20 spaces and they had a waiting list of almost the same sort of size. So it just goes to show that the opportunities for young people to engage in stuff is definitely welcomed doing these sorts of projects. And then we also went to the Careers Pathway event that Granger organised. We had a few young lads that joined us, and the one on the right there with his 7 or 8 badges was sat with us for about an hour, just how he likes about the estate and what he enjoys doing, how he enjoys spending his time. So that was really worthwhile, and thanks to Granger for putting on the event for us to be able to come along and join in. We've also got lots of writing now, so if you're following the Instagram, you will see these poems coming up regularly every few days. There's extra little bits coming on. Some of them are based on interactions with people and coming to these events. Some of them are just wandering around the state and seeing a gorgeous bird and kind of going, I've never seen that bird before. So it's inspiring lots of writing. Obviously writing workshops with residents and things as well. So we're getting to the point where we have got some stuff that we can get to a point where we've got some kind of publication relatively soon that we can then share back with residents. We also have the opportunity to join in online. So we've got our website is up and fully functional, and one part of it is all about the upcoming workshops and how to get involved with various elements. And then there's also a join section where there are various questions all around home and belonging. And you have 3 options. You can draw your answer, you can write your answer, or you can upload an image. And anyone is free to go and input into these in terms of what the community means to them, and then again these are informing the writings that are coming out from the writer in residence. The community call out has now gone live. I think it's open for another 4 or 5 days, so if you know anyone that is interested in joining those community panels, do go and check out the information. We're going to do one for adults and one for younger people, just so that younger people feel that they have the voice. They don't have to stand up in front of a room full of adults and say something that might make them feel silly. And we'll be doing sessions for that, should start in July, and it will be a mix of in-person and online, and that will be kind of teaching people about what public art can do, what it can be, so that then they can make informed decisions on what they would like to see in the area in the future. Coming up, so information and postcards were included in the June Vieward News, which I believe is kind of out there at the moment, again in partnership with the Granger on that one. Weekend just gone, we did an event called Plot Lines in the Landscape, so that was in partnership with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust and Dragonfly Arts. So they walked around the nature reserve, did some pond dipping, did some map making, creative writing, colouring in, those sorts of things. Lots of really useful conversations about living on the estate and what that's like for people. As mentioned, the first sessions for the community map panel will be in July. And then July and August, the first season of workshops with the older residents with Hannah and Kim as our writers in partnership with Wellington Vale. Those dates are just being finalised, and making sure that the care home can support as they need to on those. And then we've got a few things that we're planning for the future, which may or may not change, but we are looking to do an artist talk during Heritage Open Days in September. Linking some kind of poetry event to the Poetry Festival, which happens in October every 2 years. So that's happening this year. So we thought that was a good link. And then it's nice to sit in a field and write some poetry in the summer, not so nice in the winter. So we're going to have a look at doing online sessions in the winter when it's a bit colder and darker and potentially more wet. And finally, I'm having regular meetings with the officers that haven't regen, so well aware of what's happening in the town centre and upcoming art projects and things like that. So we are constantly exploring the ways in which the two projects can cross over to try and, you know, continue that link between the estate and the town centre itself. And that's it from me. And as always, welcome for questions.
Well, thank you very much, Emmeline. It's obviously a pretty dynamic project, but now that things have got going, and it's great to see the level of enthusiasm that you all have for it. David, your hand is raised.
Waterlooville Summer Fete on the 29th at Jubilee Park, where there's an opportunity to meet a large number of residents.
Sorry, we only caught the end of that, David, for some reason.
Sorry, yeah, I beg your pardon. Is there any intention for the Arts Project to attend the Waterlooville Summer Fete on the 29th at Jubilee Park, where there will be a large number of residents present and the opportunity to show what's going on? Antonia can probably be the link on that if you're actually interested in doing it.
Yes, absolutely. We're keen to follow up on any opportunities, so I will find out more about that one, because I didn't think it was on my radar, but that doesn't mean it wasn't on Studio Responses.
Okay, thank you.
Antonia?
In fact, Emmeline, Laura Jones organises the Summer Fete, so she's the best person to talk to. I just want to say how much I enjoyed Plot Lines in the Landscape last week. I was just amazed by the nature reserve, and because I live in Purbrook, so I'm not in Newlands, I was really blown away by the beauty of the nature reserve and what was so close to my area and what we need to be doing in Havant, actually. And I'm also delighted, and it was a really good experience with both Dragonfly Arts there, and then also Aoife and Gail. They even encouraged me to try and do some art, which I haven't done since my A level, so I was pleased with that. And I'm also delighted to hear that you're working with the Southern Music Project, because they're one of my pet projects. So, yeah, really good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the feedback. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Is there any other questions that anyone wishes to raise with Emmeline? I mean, I really do think that we seem to have hit on a very good project here now. I know there was some skepticism at the beginning because wasn't what a lot of people thought conventionally an arts project would do, which would be to perhaps sort of put some structures somewhere, and that would have been it. So this is so much more interactive, and it does seem to have caught the imagination of quite a lot of people. So really pleased with how it's going, and thank you very much for your presentation, Emmeline. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the status report for Newlands Parish Council. And I think there are a number of issues, number of things here. We have Rick Smith is here from Winchester, who may be able to answer some of the questions on open space. So David, would you like to, I'm not saying go through every last minute, every last line of the report, but raise your key points on that report.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chairman. I haven't mentioned until later on the main elephant in the room as far as the Wellington Park side is concerned, which is the Section 104 agreement, which I think is now about 10 years old and probably older than many of the residents. That is still dragging on. We do get updates from the implementation manager at Taylor Wimpey, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be concluded shortly. And that, of course, has a major impact in that it is the gating factor before the roads can be finished and adopted, and the areas of not open space as such, but those areas bordering the highway, which will then become the responsibility of Hampshire Highways. So I've left that except for a comment below. What I am concerned at the moment is that there are a number of issues in relation to Wellington Park which are still open, and I'm not sure how we can try and progress these. The main one is the fact that there is still a large area of open space which has not even been transferred to Winchester yet, and that is the area between the old Park Farm stream and Angus and Radnor Ways. And this, as you will be aware from previous meetings, is because Taylor Wimpey suddenly discovered they planted trees over the sewage easements. Now, we had hoped that the replanting to resolve that would have been done by now. No action seems to have been taken so far, and I can't get any reply. The parish clerk has contacted Taylor Wimpey. We've had no response on it, and I think it might be useful for Winchester to chase this one up, because until that's been done, that land will remain with Taylor Wimpey and cannot be transferred to any third party. The land will then have to go to Winchester City Council because, of course, the parish is not a party to the 106 agreement in Wellington Park, and then transferred to the parish council in the same long-winded way that the parts of the open space which have already gone to Winchester are being transferred. So it would be useful to get that tidied up, and I would assume that will help Taylor Wimpey's end game as well. I've referred to the proposed foot and cycle path. I'm not going to make any comment on this at the moment, though Councillor Harrison might want to do so. There is a specific maintenance issue in relation to the bed of the old Park Farm stream, which runs through both the Havant and Winchester parts. It was maintained by Taylor Wimpey some years ago. It's now very seriously in need of restoration. And particularly I discovered by looking at the government website in relation to flood risk that my house is still in a major flood area because for reasons which I don't fully understand, because my understanding is that the SUDS system in the development and the old Park Farm clearance was enough to guarantee that we had no flood risk. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that officially we are still seen in that area as a major flood area. And the fact that the stream bed is very much overgrown at the moment does not help that. So these are the things that need to be discussed. There is the final part, which Havant are well aware of, that the adoption of the parts of open space within the Havant part of Wellington Park have still not taken place, despite the fact that it was agreed by the Estates Department at a meeting which was held over probably 7 years ago now, that as they are party to the 106 agreement, they are obliged to take it. So we'd simply like to get those things tidied up. The rest of my comments, I think, have all been answered in terms of Granger's report, and that was simply noted in there the fact that these are things which will happen. We're looking forward to them, and we see these as particularly good pieces of progress. So I'll take any questions that have, or Councillor Reid can as well, if anybody has anything to raise.
Okay, thank you, David. I just wondered if Rick had anything he wanted to add about the transfers of land and the situation with the Winchester transfers. Since we've asked you to be here, I think I'll ask you to
yes,
to
yeah,
talk
thank
to
you,
us.
Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, just coming on. Oh, yeah, my camera is finally caught up. Yeah, I've been speaking to so Stuart Dunbar-Dempsey is our landscape officer. I should say, for those of you who don't know me, sorry, I'm Rick Smith, so I'm service lead for sustainability and natural environment. But yeah, Stuart Dunbar-Dempsey is sort of our lead on this one. In relation to Wellington Park, yes, similar levels of frustration, I think. I think the last message I've got from Stuart is to Taylor Wimpey, said that they would transfer these areas directly to Newlands Parish Council in due course, but they haven't done, as we know. I think the question, Stuart's raising is, are they intentionally holding on to these? And unfortunately, we haven't got the answers to that. As much as we try to press and chase. I don't know if Rose has got anything else from a planning side of things on that, but yeah, I'm afraid I haven't really got anything else to report from that. Equally frustrating, I think, is from our point of view.
Yes, thank you. I think the one point I would emphasise in here is that the offer came from Stuart to the parish to consider taking on the open space prior to the 104 agreement. The parish council has agreed to that, subject to a number of conditions. I just want you to make sure you're aware that we're hoping to get that process moving. We've had our RFO on board for some time. We've been ready for it, and this should have been done 2 or 3 years ago. And I think, provided that we are absolved from any problems that may arise in the finalisation of the 104 agreement, and also agreement on tidying up a number of things, the parish is ready to proceed with the transfer of the land as available so far. The final piece you've referred to, the complication with that being transferred directly by Taylor Wimpey to the parish, is I'm not sure whether there is a legal process that would allow that, because the complication we had when the initial land transfer was to be made is that because the parish is not a party to the 106 agreement, we didn't exist when it was set up, and Taylor Wimpey are not being prepared to do a deed of variation on it. It can only be transferred to Winchester, and then Winchester transfers it. But as you will also be aware, because the parish, even though we are a constituent part of Winchester, we're regarded as a third party, and therefore the process of offering the land possibly to other people has to be done before it can be done. So I'm simply looking at how we can simplify the process of finalising it. So Taylor Wimpey are off the hook for their pieces of open land. We have something we can finally do, because we have a number of projects that we wish to do as a parish, which we cannot do until we actually have ownership of the land. So I think we're all pushing at the same open door at the moment. It's just to make sure that we can expedite the process as much as we can.
Thank you, David. That's very helpful, and I think the idea of the forum is that these concerns can be aired as a very as a key issue. Now I have Councillor Reid and then Steve Lincoln as well. So Michael, do you want to go first?
It's just really a quickie with regards to the Havenborough Council land. Maybe Councillor Harrison may have some updates from their point of view.
Okay, I'll ask Councillor Harrison, but I'll go to Steve first.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to respond to David's point just now about the the parish council's decision to consider taking on the land subject to one or two conditions that it wants agreed. I haven't been involved in this. Rick's leading on this now, but I just wanted to say that I, in passing, I saw the council's legal officer who's been dealing with all this stuff, or trying to try and help work our way through all this. And I think, if I've understood it right, he's waiting to hear from the parish council as to what exactly the conditions are, David, that you sort of want in place. Now, forgive me if that has already been communicated, then there's been a miscommunication at our end, but that was as I understood it from him.
Yes,
I think that's,
just
that's something to do with outside of the meeting, but you know, sort of just if you're aware of it, then
yeah, absolutely.
I won't hold it up. I was simply going to comment the fact that we did agree in full council what was necessary, and also the Minties Committee. The clerk was to communicate this to I'm not sure, probably to Stuart. I will check. She's off this week. She's back on Monday. I'll check with her just to make sure it's been done. If it hasn't been sent on, I will make sure. And if necessary, I'll get her to resend those requirements.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Antonia, unfortunately, I knew had to leave at 7, and I should have called her in before she she had to leave, but she had to leave at the moment. I think she did put a message in chat, which do
you want me to read it, Chair?
Yeah, I've got it.
It
basically said, I wish I did have an update, but Open Spaces is now in my portfolio, and I will do whatever can be done to overcome the can't do objections. Apologies, I have to leave for another commitment. So we will follow that up after the meeting. So are there any further questions or comments to be made on the update from the parish council? I think one of the things is clear, and it is a theme of these meetings, and we do need to move on with land transfers as much as possible. The prospect of local government reorganisation, we do need to clear the decks to a certain extent, because if it goes to a bigger unitary authority, I don't think it'll be top of the list. So we do need to work on that. I think we therefore move on to any other business. Does anyone have any other business they'd like to raise? Councillor Crichton.
That Councillor Reid and I have drawn up a proposal for, if you like, the future of this forum in a slightly different format. And we're now waiting on a response from the two authorities and the officers who attended the meeting that we had.
Yeah, there is a slight complication there in that the strategic director who was in the meeting that you were at for the Winchester side of is no longer a strategic director at Winchester, and left about a week after that meeting, I think. I've seen the paper and I will follow it up. One thing I think I did relay to you was that Winchester's constitution requires a 6-month notice to abandon the forum, or which effectively would be the case, since the responsibility would shift to someone else. I think it's noted the work you've put into that, and I think we do need to have further discussions on it. One of the, I'm just wondering about, which is, it's a chicken and egg situation to a certain extent. We almost need to know the status of local government reorganisation to know what we need to do. I know we will, whatever happens, we will have a couple of years to deal with it, but I do think that there is this whole process that it might need to take a completely different form if government decide that various parishes in Winchester are going into Portsmouth Unitary. That would be a different form than if they take the opposite decision and you're permanently on suffering from this boundary between two big unitaries, which may be an even more frightening prospect. So I think we do need to discuss it, but at the same time, I think there's probably an opportunity to wait until probably the next meeting would be a good point to have had some further discussion on it, but we'll also understand by November, we hope we will have had a response from government. The submissions have to go in on the 26th of September, and it will. The problem, as I understand it, is that government will then consult on all the options put in by the 15 different authorities, which at the moment, obviously, the work is still going on to try to make sure that all those authorities put in something consistent. But there will be variations regardless. We're pretty sure there will be. I don't want to get into a lengthy discussion about local government reorganisation. It's so easy to drift into it, but I do think that has a fairly major bearing on the future of this forum. So,
Chairman, I take the point. I mean, what we've submitted is a discussion paper, and that I really just wanted to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. The points you've made are absolutely valid. There is no point going any further with this until we know what we're actually doing. The one point, if I might be slightly tongue-in-cheek, if the government is going to consider all the submissions, their proposed implementation date for local government reorganisation is obviously totally impractical, since it may take about 2 or 3 years to actually read those submissions, given the fact that I suspect there's going to be a very wide range of them. But we'll wait and see what happens.
I think we do need to, because and I think what's actually important is the forum to act as a, we have acted in the sounding board, and there are 2 areas that have come out of this meeting and have come out of several other meetings, but the open space in Wellington Park is a key issue that does need to be resolved before we get anywhere near local government reorganisation. And certainly the elements about haven't, and so sort of progressing with that is key, and whatever we can do within the forum to help push that forward, I think we should do. The other is the village centre. I mean, that came out of the discussion earlier, and I do think as soon as we possibly can, we need to be looking at that in detail and making sure that what is proposed is fit for purpose. So with that, unless anybody's got anything else they wish to raise, I will call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for those that attended and presented. Really appreciate it from Granger, and also from Emmeline's presentation on the arts project. I think we've had a reasonable go around the issues, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you all.
Thank you.